Honestly, I make very little money, but it's the happiest I've ever been. Money never brought me happiness. And today, helping people like me with the same in the commonality in the way our brains are wired, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
Welcome to Second Act Stories. Every 2 weeks, we take a look at people who've made major life and career changes and are pursuing more rewarding lives in a second act. I'm your host, Andy Levine.
And I'm Scott Merritt, Andy's co-host today. So today, Andy, our guest is named Jonathan Schwartz.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this guy, boy, he kind of had this crazy fall from grace, and it's like a story that I've never heard on our show before.
Yeah, this is a first, and fall for grace is the right term for this. So Jonathan was at the top of his game. He was a business manager for celebrities, and his clients included Beyonce, Alanis Morissette, Gwyneth Paltrow, Mariah Carey, and others. But he had a dark secret. He was a compulsive gambler and a cocaine addict, and over 6 years, he was embezzling large amounts of money from his clients to fund these addictions.
So gambling, cocaine, right? So, and he wasn't behaving in a in what we would consider a smart business way.
Well, this would be criminal is the right term, Scott.
All right, fair enough. Okay. Sorry to beat around the bush there, but all right. You said large amounts of money. Like how large? How much has he admitted to embezzling?
$7 million.
Oh.
And he earned a sentence of 6 years in prison for this. But he's now back in society. He went back to school after getting out of prison, and he is now making a living as a counselor and a therapist at a California rehab facility called Altus Rehab. And as you heard in the intro of the episode, he is the happiest he's ever been before.
I'm kind of speechless, and I can't wait to see the movie. I know that his story has to be made into a movie, but you know, right now all we've got is a podcast episode, and maybe the podcast episode will be the inspiration for the movie. So let's hear Jonathan Schwartz's second act story.
I grew up in upstate New York in the Catskill Mountains. At age 4, my father abandoned myself and my younger brother, who was 1 at the time. And so my mother was forced to raise 2 young boys. She had to work 3 jobs to put food on the table and a roof over our head. She was an incredible woman. She is an incredible woman. I experienced a lot of childhood trauma, the abandonment of my father. My mother physically and emotionally abused me. She's my rock today. I've forgiven her. She was just a single parent who, at a very young age, just wasn't ready to take on that role. But she did the best she could.
Absolutely. Tell us about college and where you went to school and that kind of thing.
So my childhood, as I mentioned, was pretty much difficult. We moved from place to place. There was a lot of instability. And the same for college for me. I started out at CW Post in Long Island studying accounting. After the first year, I wanted to transfer to a state school, SUNY Albany, which had a better accounting program. So I decided to become a bookie within my fraternity with a fraternity brother, because bookies always win, right? But the answer to me was, so let me try and make some money so I can go socialize with my fraternity brothers or others. And what it turned out to be was we were the only bookies probably in the world that lost money after the first 2 weeks. So that backfired on me, but that was my first dabble in gambling from the side of a bookie. I then transferred to San Francisco State because I couldn't afford to pay the debt there, and finished my last year at San Francisco State, and which was a great accounting school as well for me.
After graduation, Jonathan honed his skills working for an accounting firm in the Bay Area. But his immediate goal was to work for his cousin, who was a CPA, but also one of the top business managers in the entertainment industry. He joined his cousin's firm in 1995.
I was the first one in and the last one to leave. I got paid very little money, but I viewed it as if I was going to grad school and learning from the best professor and my cousin, if you will. And so I rolled up my sleeve. I absorbed everything that he and his partners and others on the staff could teach me.
In 1999, his cousin's firm was acquired by J.P. Morgan. That's when Jonathan left to join GSO Business Management and eventually become a partner within this company.
So there were a total of 4 partners. We had about 75 employees. We were considered a boutique entertainment business management firm representing high net worth celebrities in music, film, TV, and professional sports. The makeup of the staff consisted of a bookkeeper who would assigned to a client, would collect that client's income from all revenue sources, pay the client's bills for individual and all related entities that the client might have. So, for example, if you have a touring band, let's just say Linkin Park, which was one of my clients, there were 6 members. So each of the members, we handled their personal lives, and then we handled the lives of Linkin Park, whether it was music touring, publishing, merchandising, whatever ventures they entered into. And that helped us create a financial statement. But for us as business managers, it's really important that the financial statements allow us to view a financial script, if you will, of that client's overall life. And from that, we can make suggestions.
Now, so you start this in 2000?
Yes.
Okay. And you work for some absolutely huge names. Do you want to share with our audience just some of the clients that you had?
Sure. So each partner was responsible for their respective clients. So for me, I would say at the height of my career, I represented beautiful people, including Linkin Park, Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Gwyneth Paltrow, Matthew McConaughey, and many other rising stars that were just wonderful to work with.
What was your playbook for working with these incredibly popular artists?
I think my playbook was treating them like I would treat anybody else. I often say that they put shoes and socks on the same way you and I put shoes and socks on. So I was not enamored by who they were. Certainly it was a privilege and an honor to work with them, but I wasn't a yes business manager. And I would say that to them when they were seeking a new business manager. If you want a yes business manager, then I'm not the business manager for you. If you want someone that's going to say no respectfully and to challenge you on your financial decisions, then I'm your business manager. I had a great relationship with my clients until I started to do what I did.
Okay. And that's a good transition here. Talk through I guess I'd call it the fall from grace.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair way of describing it. So sometime around 2010, I started to become a compulsive gambler. I met a person in my community where I lived who was an assistant coach to me. I was coaching kids baseball, youth sports, and he asked me if I wanted to start gambling. Because he knew I liked sports, and I said sure. And so I placed the first small bet with him, and then I realized that I enjoyed it. And before you knew it, I created called a $25,000 debt. Now, I could have used my own money to pay for it, but I chose, out of fear that my wife would say something, why is this missing from the bank account, or what did you spend this on? This was the start of my criminal behavior and hiding this dark secret for almost 6 years from everybody around me. Nobody knew. And so gambling is a progressive disease. So let me just borrow money from client A and I'll pay back the client next week. Well, next week came and now my debt was even larger. I don't like to label myself, but back then I was a degenerate gambler. And that was the start of really some terrible choices that I made for those 6 years. It was one client, then it became another client. It was probably about 5, 6 direct victims of my crime. And overall, the total was $7 million that I embezzled. I did not miss a single day in 6 years calling my bookie to place a bet.
Jonathan's life started to unravel when one of his clients, Altus Morissette, left GSO Business Management for another firm. He received a call from Altus's new business manager asking a simple question. What happened to $4.6 million? Altus doesn't understand where this money went. Jonathan met with his business partners and told them Altus had used the money to set up a cannabis business that had failed, which was completely fabricated. He even offered to take a lie detector test.
So now fast forward to sometime in May 2016. My wife and I were at a resort celebrating our anniversary, and I received a phone call from one of my former partners. And he said, well, we're ready for you to take a lie detector test. We want you to come to Beverly Hills and meet one of the top FBI polygraphers. And I said, okay, great. So I hung up. Now I was caught, because now I had to tell my wife, who didn't know any of this, that I need to go take a polygraph test because I've been embezzling money from clients for 6 years. And she looked at me with some sense of bewilderment, and of course a lot of tears coming from my eyes and fear of how she might react. And so I decided that I will Google how to beat a lie detector test. Mind you, during this, I'm doing cocaine and placing bets. So now I leave the next morning, and I leave with plenty of cocaine to do on my hour-and-a-half drive from Santa Barbara to Beverly Hills. Who does that? Who goes to a lie detector test with mountains of cocaine in their system? And it was the day I placed my last bet, which was on May 8th, 2016. So May 9th, 2016 is my sobriety date and abstinence date from any and all drugs and gambling. I went in to meet the gentleman. I put my feet up on his desk, thought I was a big shot, as if this guy's my friend. And then the lie detector test comes. Then I feel like, okay, I got this. I leave there with confidence that I beat this. As on my way back to Santa Barbara, I realized when I arrived back in the hotel that I couldn't access my computer anymore. I then received shortly after a call from my attorney, and he said, you failed that test worse than anybody that's ever been given a lie detector test from this gentleman. And so that was the moment that I knew I was facing probably a very large sentence, and now my family was ruptured. All my loved ones would find out as the media started to get a wind of this. I hurt my beautiful children. I hurt my wife. I hurt my mother. I hurt my brother. I hurt my stepfather. I hurt the people in the entertainment space. I hurt my partners. I hurt my staff. I hurt everybody that came in contact with me. I take full responsibility and hold myself fully accountable for all of those poor choices that I made. And nobody is to blame but me.
Jonathan was sentenced to 6 years in prison. He lost his livelihood, his CPA license, and his family. His ex-wife and middle son even testified against him in court. He hit rock bottom, but he was sober and ready to start over.
So when I came out of prison on April 16, 2020 and re-entered society, I thought I was well educated and thought it wouldn't be very difficult to get a job. Well, as a felon, I realized it was very difficult to get a job. I started working at Dunkin' Donuts because that was the only place that would hire me. I was cleaning the floors. I was cleaning the countertops. And ultimately, apparently, I wasn't cleaning enough because I got fired after 2 months. But that helped me become more humble. And that helped me, learn to completely eradicate my ego and really put humility above all isms. And then from there, I took a job working for Lexus of Thousand Oaks as an auto salesperson. Ironically, in the state of California, auto salespersons must be licensed by the Department of Motor Vehicles. They gave me by accident a 3 to 4 month provisional license while they checked my background. Within 3 months, they came back and they said, you can no longer be an auto salesperson. With that, I decided it was my time to give back to my brothers and sisters and anyone who is struggling out there so that they don't make the same mistakes that I made. And so my passion started at that moment. I went and entered an addiction studies school. I became a certified addiction and drug counselor. After that, I wanted to do more. I wanted to be a therapist with a specialization in addiction and trauma. So I went to grad school and became an AMFT, Associate Marriage and Family Therapist, with a specialization in addiction and trauma.
After a few internships and positions in his new field, Jonathan came to work at Altus Rehab.
The owner here, her name is Janelle. I couldn't have been blessed to work for such a lovely woman whose sole purpose is to help people struggling with addiction and mental health. And it's not about the bottom line for her. It's about caring for each client. And she didn't judge me. I was very transparent that I'm a felon, that I could use a job to put food on my own table and food in my refrigerator, and she took a chance on me. And I'm forever grateful for that. And about in March of last year, she made me a program director, which is quite an honor. This is an incredible treatment center. You know, Altus Rehab is a 6-bed luxury detox and residential place. We're opening up a second beautiful luxury home for detox and residential. And every client that comes in here gets specialized care. These people are leaving here with a strong foundation to maintain a sustainable recovery. I play a role in it, but so does every staff member here. And it really starts with the culture that Janelle created here at Altus Rehab. And so for today, I provide therapy to clients at both treatment centers. At Altus Rehab, I'm still the program director. And it's just, honestly, I make very little money, but it's the happiest I've ever been. Money never brought me happiness. And today, helping people like me with the same, in the commonality in the way our brains are wired, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
How old are you now?
I'm 55 years old. So I started grad school at about 51 years old. I was the oldest student in grad school.
What does a typical day look like at Altus Rehab for you?
It's 24/7. There's not enough self-care in my life, but it's about being of service. So for me, I wake up at like 4:35 in the morning, probably about 5 hours of sleep. I walk my dog. I live in a small one-bedroom, which I say that with humility. It's a great place for me. It's a roof over my head. After that, I open up my computer at home. I see what tasks are needed for the clients today. And I'm usually here at Altus Rehab by 8:30 in the morning. And the moment I walk in the door, some are sleeping, some are up. I greet them. Is there anything I can do to help you? How was your night? Throughout the day, I'm going to lead certain groups. Then we do individual therapy. I just stay connected with the clients and the staff, too. Like, I want to make sure that the staff is happy. We have a great team here. But my job is to make sure that the culture is aligned with the vision of the owner and CEO, Janelle. Then by 5 o'clock rolls around, I usually leave because I have to pick up my dog from doggy day camp. And I usually go home and eat and open up that laptop and continue to work.
And you've been working at Altus for how many years?
Almost over 2 years.
That sounds like the best job you've ever had in your life.
The most gratifying job I've ever had. I don't even want to call it a job, just the most gratifying place that I work.
You've been sober for over 9 years now. How do you maintain this recovery and your commitment to sobriety?
I have a very strong personal recovery plan. I sponsor people, countless people. I'm also have a sponsor. I surround myself with quality people, people who support my recovery. Today I'm comfortable in my own skin. I no longer have low self-esteem or self-worth. I have a healthy version of self-esteem and self-worth. Today I am comfortable sitting by myself at a Starbucks and not fear of being judged as a loner. I don't seek external validation in my recovery plan. I receive that intrinsically from within myself. And that's all part of a strong recovery plan that I practice on a daily basis.
Can you talk about your hope for reconciliation with your two children?
Sure. Thank you for asking that. The answer to that question is do I think about two of my three children every day. I speak about all three of my children. My youngest son is 21 and we speak daily. The other two, I have learned to accept and surrender to my higher power, that they'll be back in my life when they're ready, when my higher power puts them back in my life. I don't carry any resentments because, again, my poor choices led them to feel whatever they're feeling. My three boys were my best friends. And I do believe that when the time is right, they will be back in my life, and that'll be the greatest moment in my life. I miss them. I love them. But as a result of my actions, I can understand why they're not talking to Dad.
What would you like our listeners to know about addiction?
Unfortunately, there's a stigma, and The only people who can save you is you by just coming to treatment here at Altus Rehab. And we will support you, non-judgmental, and be there to help you on your journey. So it's really just boils down to someone who just says, I've had enough and I'm willing to seek help.
It sounds like you're much, much happier today in this new role than you were at this high-profile job, making 7 figures and rubbing elbows with top celebrities. Have I got that correct?
100%. Not even a question.
Andy Bravo. I mean, what an exceptional, interesting, really unexpected kind of interview. I'm always impressed at the people you seem to find, that you turn these rocks over and you have these amazing stories.
This was an amazing story and really a fun interview. Well, I shouldn't say a fun interview, but just a really interesting interview to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's like no other.
Absolutely.
We covered that at the beginning, but really, truly, I mean, Jonathan's story, thankfully, we don't have people lining up to tell us stories like this. So, as you might expect, I have a million questions about it, but
we're not going to. We don't have time for that. But go ahead.
Yes, I'll try to limit it to a couple. Okay, so this is really interesting because Jonathan was thrust into a second act that wasn't a choice, right? It was out of necessity. And most of the people, almost everybody else that we've ever spoken to, has been somebody who was following some sort of a passion or some sort of a path that they needed to follow for themselves. He was doing it because he didn't really have another choice.
I would argue a little differently. I mean, I think there were other choices he had, maybe not as many as he would have had, before the situation, but his path is redemption. And he wants to redeem himself, his past bad behavior, and that led him eventually to figure out, I've got to help other people who are like me, who have addiction problems. And he went back to school for that, got 2 different degrees, and now he is doing that at Altus Rehab. He is helping people who have addiction problems, and I think it's all about his redemption.
So I have maybe this is more of a cynical kind of question, but right, he goes from this huge power broker position, right? He's representing A-list talent. He's making millions of dollars. He's stealing millions of dollars. But then he winds up at a job making minimum wage at Dunkin' Donuts. He gets fired from that. He goes to try to sell cars for a living. He can't even do that because they don't let felons do that in California. So there's this incredible journey that he went on career-wise. And I guess the question is, how sincere do you think that he is with what he's doing now? Or was it just this seems to be maybe the only path that I can take and actually have some sort of a job?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I spent about an hour with him over Zoom, essentially. And it's a little hard to assess his authenticity or sincerity in that kind of a setting. But I have to tell you, he comes across as very sincere, very authentic. I think, he is trying to do good, and he's trying to help others, and he's trying to help others that, like him, are headed down a dark path. And I think this is, once again, all part of his redemption and trying to turn his life around.
Well, I'm sure the listeners will make their own decisions based on what they've heard in this episode.
Sounds good.
On that note, I think it's probably time we wrap this thing up.
Sounds good. If you want to learn more about Jonathan and Altus Rehab, you can visit their website at altusrehab.com. They are ready to help anyone in need of addiction treatment services.
If you need them, they're there for you, and we urge you to look them up. We also want you to follow us on social media. We're out there on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. We have our Substack, which you can subscribe to. And if you like what you're hearing, we definitely want you to tell your friends and everybody you know about us. Leave a review, rate us, however you do it. Just keep listening and keep sharing and keep staying tuned, because there are more second act stories just around the corner.